So all through these last few weeks, and for a few more weeks, we have been looking at some of the names of Jesus. In Scripture, there are around 200 different names or titles that are mentioned for Jesus, and names are important, and they help us understand who someone is. And there's this really interesting passage in the book of Isaiah that was written about 700 years before Jesus. And it's talking about the Messiah, and it's talking about these different names for the Messiah and what he will be called when he comes. It's a passage that we very often read around Christmas time. So I know it's not Christmas yet, although I'm already thinking about Christmas because that's just how I'm weird, right? But here it is. Listen to some of these names that are mentioned. Isaiah chapter 9, verses 6 to 7. For to us a child is born, to us a son is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. Of the greatness of his government and peace there will be no end. Prince of Peace, Prince of Peace. Actually, there's a lot of names mentioned for Jesus here, right? Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. And we could spend a week on each one of these names, but this morning we are going to be looking at this name of the Prince of Peace. Jesus is the Prince of Cheese. Chiefs? Chiefs. Did I just say Chiefs? If you don't know why people are laughing, I am way too big of a Chiefs fan. They play at 2:25 today, and I'm apparently already thinking about it. Jesus is the Prince of Peace. I hope that's the last time I do that this morning. He is the Prince of Peace, meaning he is in charge of peace. When he came to bring peace, peace in our souls and peace between us and God. Bringing peace is a consistent promise for the coming Messiah throughout the Old Testament, like Micah 5:5. He will be our peace. The Messiah is the Prince of Peace. Now, how are you supposed to understand this peace, though? Because for us, we misunderstand the word peace. In our culture, peace is often used to talk about a lack of conflict, right? Two countries were in a war, and now it's a time of peace, right? We just talk about peace as this lack of conflict, this lack of strife, but that is not how the Bible defines peace. And that's not the full extent to which the Prince of Peace comes. Jesus came to bring a different sort of peace. That's why in John 14:27, he says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give you. I do not give to you as the world gives." In Hebrew, the word for the type of peace the Messiah is going to bring is this word shalom. You might have heard this word for peace in Hebrew is shalom. And that peace, shalom peace, goes way past just a lack of conflict, a lack of strife, a lack of war. This sort of peace, it means to make something complete. It means something that wasn't whole is made whole. Something that was broken is restored. And that is the sort of peace that the Prince of Peace, the Messiah, came to give to you and to me. You see, we are not at peace naturally with God because in our own brokenness, we have rebelled against God. And so our relationship with him is broken and it's not complete and it's not whole. So the Messiah comes and dies for us to extend to us shalom, to where our relationship with God can find peace, can find restoration, can find completeness. And in this way, he is the Prince of Peace. But also in another way, in a more practical way, he comes to help us find peace right now in our life, this stillness, this joy, this contentedness that we want to know in this moment too. And all of this peace, whether it's peace between us and God, whether it's the peace that we want in our own soul, it is only found in the Prince of Peace, the Prince of Peace. And yet, how few of us actually experience that? How few of us would actually be like, yeah, right now I experience total peace, complete peace. It is difficult to really experience peace in our lives, right? Now, we might think that this is just always an issue in all society, and it is, but it's particularly a weird issue right here in the United States. In 2021, the Gallup poll did a huge research study around the world, and they went to different nations and they asked people if they were experiencing peace, like in their minds, how they felt, and if they were just, that was the norm, if they were always experiencing peace in their lives. Now, the top countries, some places in like Northern Europe and in Southern, South America, they reported that about 60 to 70% of adults in those countries were experiencing peace regularly. 70%, the top country, 70%. Do you want to guess what America was? 28%. That's wild. So you're telling me the most prosperous nation on earth experiences peace at about the same rates as countries that are war-torn, impoverished, and starving do. That is wild. We struggle to find peace. There is something particularly different, not only in the human condition, but in the condition of our culture that prevents us from truly experiencing the peace that the Prince of Peace came to bring. For us, life seems like a long, long list. Overworked schedules, impossible expectations, constant problems, strained relationships, that to-do list that only grows instead of ever gets done, and it's all done at a breakneck pace. I meet people who are busy, people who are tired, people who are overextended, but rarely people will be like, yeah, I am at peace. Jesus is the Prince of Peace, though. And so he's come to give us peace between us and God and peace within our own souls, and we're just not experiencing it. So we could get up here and say, yes, he's the Prince of Peace, great, awesome, let's go have lunch. But what I'm interested in is how can we actually experience this peace that Jesus has come to bring us? And I think the biggest hurdle for a lot of us, the biggest thing that prevents us from really experiencing peace is being able to live in this curious stretch of time that is the present. And so to understand really why we're not experiencing the Prince of Peace's peace, I want to talk about 5 different hurdles that are preventing us from really experiencing peace right now and living in the present moment. So that's what we're up to, five hurdles that are preventing many of us from finding peace in the present, and how Jesus can help us overcome these hurdles and really bring us the peace that he came to bring. First hurdle that keeps us from experiencing the Prince of Peace's peace is this: we are too present in the past. We're too present in the past. You've probably been there. But a lot of us, we struggle with the past for different reasons. Like some of us, we struggle with the past because of nostalgia. Nostalgia is like an edited, enhanced version of the past. Some nostalgia is fine. It's telling those, family stories of the past. You always leave out the bad parts, right? But it's this enhanced version of the past. Nostalgia is like this. It's going to your TV and turning on the brightness. It's turning up the brightness on the past. And suddenly you look back at the present and it seems dimmer. We're always artificially enhancing the brightness of the past. Well, then the present seems more dim and more difficult, and it's not going to be where you find peace. But Jesus gives us peace for the present by reminding us that our future really can be brighter in him. Others of us are too present in the past because of guilt. We've done things wrong in the past, and they haunt us. It comes back up in our minds over and over again, the mistakes we've made, and it gives us this guilt that comes between us and God. But we're told in Romans 5:1 that we have been justified through faith. We have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. And so some of us, we've got a sense that we can't find peace because we're stuck in the past in what we did and that guilt. And Jesus, the Prince of Peace, is saying, no, I have come to bring true peace regardless of what you've done, regardless of the mistakes you've made. You can have peace with God through my blood. And for us, then, we need to grasp that peace because we're too present in the past. Others of us, we're too present in the past to experience peace in the present because of the pain we've endured. The word abuse means to use an object for a purpose for which it was not designed. And some of us in this room have been used in the past by other people for purposes for which we were not designed. And that pain, it keeps us in the past. And we replay over and over what was done to us living in the past. But we can find peace in Jesus by realizing that what he has done for us is greater than what was done to us. We all have different ways of living in the past, and it steals our peace. We cannot feel peace in the present because our minds are always trying to pull us back to the past. Soren Kierkegaard once said, "Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards." Life can only be understood backwards, but it must be lived forwards. Living in the present instead of the past is a lot like the monkey bars. You remember this when you were in elementary school and you go out? I had my kids on a playground yesterday, right? And my youngest daughter, she wanted to go on the monkey bars. And so she's like this tall in the monkey bar. So I, lift her up, and she's hanging there. And what do you have to do? You have to grab onto the next bar. She got that one right. But then you have to let go, right? You have to have the courage to let go of the bar behind you in order to grasp on the bar in front of you. But you just couldn't do it. And that's a lot of us. The reason we get stuck in the past is we just can't let go. And so we're not going to be able to live in the present and take advantage and grip that next thing to come. Why aren't we able to experience the Prince of Peace's peace in the present? First, because we're too present in the past. We're too present in the past. Second hurdle that keeps us from peace is we're too fearful of the future. We're too fearful of the future. We don't know what will happen in the future. We don't. That's why FanDuel takes everybody's money, right? That's why everybody loses. We're too fearful of this future. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. So in our minds, what we do is we often role play and we come up with all the different scenarios of what could happen, right? Have you done this? Right? You're not sure what's going to happen. Like you've got this thing at work, or you've got this thing at home, or you've got this thing in a relationship, and you're like, I don't actually know what's going to happen. And so your mind runs through like the 20 things that could happen. And what do you get all fixated on? Like the worst two possibilities, right? You know you do. And then, in addition to that, all the gaps in between that, you fill with worry and anxiety. So we fear the possibilities of a fictitious future which we ourselves have fabricated. Jesus put it this way in Matthew 6:34. Do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble of its own. We fear all sorts of things about tomorrow. We fear being separated from a loved one. We fear failure. We fear financial loss. We fear losing a job. We fear not realizing our dreams. We fear feeling insignificant. We fear others disliking us. Fear is a thing that frightens us then into giving it control and letting the fear direct what we're going to do, right? We're too fearful of the future. We're too fearful of the future. Fear is like the worst backseat driver ever, right? Have you ever had a backseat driver? If you've been married, never mind, I won't go there. You've had a backseat driver, right? And what does a backseat driver do? A backseat driver keeps being like, here's the worst things that could happen, right? You're like, the car's in front of you, like, right? Like, we're gonna hit it. And like, no, we're not gonna hit it, I see the car, right? A backseat driver lists all the worst possibilities of what could happen. And eventually, what do you do with a backseat driver? You go, well, if you don't like it, then you can drive, right? And so like, you take over. You drive this thing. And that's what fear does. Fear tries to list all the worst things that could happen in your future until you just go, okay, fear, you take over. And then it paralyzes you, right? Because the fear takes over and the fear drives your life. But did you know that studies have found that about 85% of what we fear in the future never takes place? So why do we fear the future? Well, sometimes it's because we don't quite trust the author of our future. Corrie ten Boom put it this way: never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God. Never be afraid to trust an unknown future to a known God. For some of us, our minds can be consumed with the fear of the what ifs. What if this happens tomorrow? What if this happens in my job? What if this happens next week? The only remedy that'll slow our minds down and get us living true peace in the present is just trusting that unknown future to the known God. Why aren't we able to experience the Prince of Peace's peace in the present? Well, we're too fearful of the future. We fear it. Third hurdle that keeps us from this peace is we're too fixated on the future. Some of us get obsessed with what's going to happen like 1 month or 2 years or like 2 decades down the line, right? We've got our vision board, or we've got our 5-year plan, and man, we are so fixated on that. I know that I can struggle with this of just like getting just so caught up in the dreams or the plans of the future, prepare, and we can all do this. We can get so fixated on some goal or retirement, promotion, house, relationship, job, that we're unable to actually live peacefully in the present because our mind is in the future all the time. This can be a struggle for so many of us. Then we begin to feel the weight of that mythical future that we've created in our mind. So peace becomes something that we keep telling ourselves that we're going to find, but it's like a carrot dangled before a horse. We never actually get there. It's always tomorrow. But why do we make the mistake of becoming fixated on the future? I think it's because we think the future is guaranteed, and we think we can control it. But we're told in James 4:14, you do not even know what will happen tomorrow. What is your life? You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. You are a mist that appears for a little while and then vanishes. Super comforting stuff, right? You're a mist. You can't control the future and you can't know the future. Our fixation on the future is dangerous because that future is not guaranteed. You've got no guarantee that you're going to have that future in a year or 2 years, and you have no ability to control it. We need to be able to take care of the future without living in it. We need to have the ability to prepare for the future without fixating on it. Why aren't we able to experience the Prince of Peace's peace in the present? Well, because we're just too fixated on the future. We get too obsessed with it. We're living in it. Fourth hurdle that keeps us from peace is we're too distracted. We're too distracted to be present. We're too distracted to be present right now in this present moment. Distraction results in your mind and your body not being present in the same place. Have you noticed this, right? Have you ever done this where like you get on your phone to check an email and then 30 minutes later you're like, whoa, what just happened? Right? And you check social media and you were on like 12 emails and check the news 3 times. You're like, your mind and your body went, whoop. They were in different places. We're not present to who we are with or who we are around. And today we have this incredible ability to just live in distraction and have distracted minds. You know, the gaps in life, the margins in life, those little moments that are supposed to be still in life, where you're waiting in life, are often where we actually find like just a few seconds of rest and peace, right? When you're in your car waiting for a moment, when you're in a waiting room, when you've got just a couple seconds and you sit down, a lot of times that's when you actually are like, oh, you breathe out and you're like, oh, I can be still. But now in our culture, what do we do with those moments? I sit down in a waiting room and right? Now I just ate up the only moment I had to find peace with a distraction. We have incredibly distracted minds. Those gaps, margins, stillness of life are where we find peace. But in our culture, we fill it with noise and screens and distraction. A few months ago, I was out to eat with Megan, and I looked across the restaurant, and there was a family. It was like a family of 4, two teenage kids, mom and dad, and they were all on their phones. Have you seen this when you go out to eat? Like, dude, just get DoorDash. Like, why? If you're not going to talk to each other, what's going on? Like, the food came, they didn't even look up, right? Just totally distracted, because when you're distracted, you can't be present with the people you're actually with. It's so easy to be on our phones when someone's talking to us or thinking about something else when we're on an important conversation, or be in the house and we're trying to talk, but actually we're watching the TV. And there are times we're not present with the people we love, even when we're with them. And we have to train ourselves to put the things down so we can actually be present with people. Jesus valued people more than the things he had to do. He valued people more than the things he had to do. There's this time where people begin to bring Jesus these children. And a group of children begin to gather around Jesus, and his disciples get mad. They get mad because they know that Jesus has this to-do list of things he's got to get done. And they're like, this list is more important than these stinking little kids, right? And Jesus is like, no, you got it all wrong. That's when Jesus says in Mark 10:14, let the little children come to me. Because he valued people more than things to do. But we often do the opposite. Our distractions pull us away from people. So let's put it real practical. Some of us struggle with this, maybe some of us don't, but let's make this real practical. To find peace instead of distraction, we need to get off our phone, tablet, computer when we're like around people. We need to give up on responding, the thought that we're going to respond to every email and every text within like 30 seconds. We need to give ourselves kind of a daily limit of how many times we're going to visit that website or this, or how many times we're going to check in on the news. You already saw what happened. It's not going away. We need to give ourselves a time each night where we're like, okay, I'm going to put away the devices. I'm going to put away the phone, the distractions. Put down your things so you can be present with your people. Why aren't we able to experience the Prince of Peace's peace in the present? Well, it's because we're too distracted. We're too distracted to be present in this moment. Fifth thing that keeps us from experiencing the peace of the present is we're too overwhelmed. We're too overwhelmed to be present. We try to keep this neat outward appearance up for other people, so we let kind of just the world around us set our schedule. We think to keep up our appearance that we got to say yes. Have you ever said, like, we think we got to keep up this appearance. We got to say yes to every kid's activity. We've got to say yes to every opportunity somebody gives us. We got to say yes to staying late at work if the boss ever asks us. We've got to say yes to helping with the kids at school. We got to say yes to the neighborhood HOA. We got to say yes to everything. Because we wouldn't want anyone to think negatively of us, right? So to keep up appearances, we spend more yeses than we actually have. And our schedule is so overpacked, we're overwhelmed. Have you spent all of your yeses? Is your life marked by kind of feeling overwhelmed? I know this is easy for me to get in, like just doing far, far, far too much. And the problem is if you give away all of your yeses to keep up appearances for others, then you'll end up having to say no to the things that God brings your way for you to find peace in. Because you already spent all your yeses. You have to say no. But why do we allow ourselves to be so overwhelmed? Well, it's often because we want to look good, right? We want to look good to other people. We want to appear perfect. Many of us have traded in the health of our souls so that we can look like highly capable, nearly perfect people to the people that know us, or the people who only are acquaintances. But you don't have to be perfect, and you don't have to choose perfection over connection. It really is far better to be loved just by a few people who know your flaws than to be admired by many people who you have tricked into thinking that you're practically perfect, right? Because if you do that, if you go after the approval of others, you'll be overwhelmed, overstretched, overscheduled, and never find peace. We are far too overwhelmed to be present. We're far too overwhelmed to be present. One of Jesus' names in Scripture is the Prince of Peace. And we can all be here and say, yes, this is what I want. I want the Prince of Peace. I want that peace that Jesus brings. Yeah, I want that peace that he brings wholeness to my relationship with God. He brings completeness to that which is broken by my sin between me and God. I want the peace that he brings and that stillness and that rest to my soul. Yes and amen. I want that. Give me that peace, Jesus. Give me that peace. And yet so few of us actually experience that peace. So what are we to do? We must live that peace in the present. We must live that peace in the present. We can't get caught up, fixated, or fearful about the future. We can't get caught up living in the past. We can't get caught up too distracted to live in this moment because the Prince of Peace is a person. The Prince of Peace is a person. Your peace won't be found in another technique. It won't be found in another self-help book. It will be found in Jesus, because the Prince of Peace is a person. This is what Ephesians 2:14 tells us. He himself is our peace. Not you'll find peace when you do better. Not you'll find peace when you find a better technique, when you find that self-help book. No, the Prince of Peace is a person. He himself is our peace. Jesus himself is our peace. And that means everything. Because it doesn't mean that you're going to get stuck in the future or the past, but that you can be living in the present with Jesus right here and right now, because the Prince of Peace is a person. Peace is not the absence of problems. Peace is not just the absence of strife. It is being able to be at rest right here because you know your Creator and you've been saved by the Messiah. Jesus is the Prince of Peace. And he's come to give us that peace between us and God. And he's come to give us a peace within our own souls.